Hello, everyone. Hello, and a big, huge good evening. This is Ethel Da Costa, and you're with me on Heart to Heart. Today is a lovely, cloudy kind of, evening in Malaysia. I think the monsoons are setting in. It kind of feels slightly kind of cooler, which I love. And the whole weather has a lovely romantic feel, which I love again. And I think as the weather and climate change is also happening, you see a lot of temperature differences too. So in Labuan, when I was there, 3 months, the weather was warm and hot and humid, and then suddenly in evenings there would be like a downpour, a big huge shower with thunder, lightning, the fireworks as I call it, and I loved it. I really loved it. And I'm back in Kuala Lumpur. It's just on Friday night, and it's good to be back home. It's good to be back home and to get into the groove of things back again, and to have you joining us on the Ethel Da Costa page on Facebook. And this is Heart to Heart, which happens every Sunday. We call it the Leadership Soul Series because the idea of Heart to Heart is to bring on board guests who I believe are empowered individuals, and the whole empowerment that they embody is also shared out there in the world, which people who live their own lives with truth and integrity are so important today to help and support people out there who need help and support. So that's a core philosophy of Heart to Heart, and it is a huge honor for me to connect with with the kind of talent and guests who I bring on board my show, and to figure out what their lives are all about, to kind of decide the kind of topics we want to discuss, and put it out there, and have all of you, who join me on Heart to Heart from India, from Malaysia, from the rest of the world. It's a huge pleasure, and it's a huge honor for me to have your trust as well. So thank you. Thank you for the faith. Thank you for coming on every Sunday to be part of the Heart to Heart show. Heart to Heart Ethel Da Costa is in association with Clinic. The MAC Clinic is Malaysia's premier and pioneering aesthetic institution. It gives me great pleasure to have them on board with me to support the show and to also lend their own truth and integrity to what we do with the rest of the world. So welcome on board. Welcome on board. And I can see friends logging into the show. Yes, this Sunday the show is logged on to Ethel Da Costa, which is my brand page. And every Sunday henceforth, it will be on the Ethel Da Costa brand page on Facebook. So welcome on board. I'm waiting for you to join us. I'm waiting for you to acquaint with our guests today. Some very special guests from Malaysia. Two fabulous professionals who are in the field of life coaching. And I'm very excited myself to figure out, their own lives as coaches, the entire attitudes, and gifts that they share with their own clients, and how they support to transform, the lives of people who reach out to them for help. So today's topic is very, very interesting because I find, the entire stream and philosophy of life coaching so interesting because it has helped my own life. And if we can support and help others as well to transform their lives, I think, I would consider my own gift, shared as well. So today's topic is life coaching just another lifestyle trend, or is it a sign of our times? And let me expand on it and say why I am saying that. I think for the last 3 years, ever since COVID, became a fixture of our lives, I've seen that people suddenly woke up to, dealing with themselves, dealing with all of their, mental issues, which were not addressed, in their other lives, busy lives, because they were busy, being professionals or busy being part of the rat race, and never kind of, dealt with their own baggage, so to say, emotional baggage, mental baggage, or psychological baggage. And COVID forced all of us to look at ourselves in the mirror, face to face, lock eyes with ourselves, so to say. I did the same thing with my life too. And my life coach, who is based in India, Ashna Danak, kind of really did an awesome job, I guess, because I was so open to being helped as well. Set me down, and we worked together, on dealing with all the baggage, my own baggage, which was all pushed under the carpet, so to say. And we still work, and because healing is a continuous process. There's no time limit on that. And I think people who I reached out to in my own peer circle and in my own professional group as well suddenly realized that they had to take stock of themselves and figure out, how do we deal with this, right? How do we deal being locked in? How do we deal with the traumas of our own relationships, past or present? And how do we springboard ourselves to become better individuals, better humans, better women, better men? And that's why the topic becomes so interesting for me, to kind of say, how do we navigate through this? How do we navigate through this environment? How do we decide which life coach resonates with us, and therefore reach out, for help? Because we must understand, we share a lot, we reveal a lot of ourselves to a professional who we've never met before, and therefore the bond of trust between a coach and the one who is being coached is so integral to healing. The quality of that relationship is very integral to our own healing as well. And therefore, I said, let's bring this. Let's address the elephant in the room, because it needs to be addressed. Because I think the market now is also, kind of flooded, with everyone claiming to be a life coach, with or without professional integrity. I think as a journalist, I looked at it as very integral to kind of sieve through that environment and figure out, how do we empower others to make the right decisions for themselves, to reach out to a coach for help. So the kind of coach that you reach out for help will also ensure the quality of your own healing and the speed of your own healing too. So here we are today with two fabulous life coaches. They're both based in Malaysia. They have a whole body of work, behind them to support the kind of work that they have been doing as professionals in their field. And therefore, it gives me great pleasure to introduce my first guest today. My first guest is Tessie Lim. Tessie Lim is an executive coach whose work specialization is personal power and self-actualization. She has been known to kind of actually really put herself out there, and to support individuals to live their highest potential and their best performances. I've met Tessie on and off, socially as well, and she completely resonated with me and to me as well, because, as I said, being on the same journey that I am in, to also in the journey of healing, I found Tessie to be kind of really out there, really kind of grounded in her authenticity, in her truth, and in her integrity as a life coach, because she also has seen the other side of the spectrum as well, and that is important for people like us who are looking to have the right people on board with us. So let's bring Tessie on board, and let's bring her live, and let me introduce her to you. Tessie, there you are.
Hi.
There you are.
How are you?
Good evening. Good evening. And
Good
welcome to Heart to Heart. Good
Great
to
to
have
be
you.
here.
Good to
Very
have you.
interesting topic, the way you've introduced it this evening. And I'm sure we'll get into it with Michele.
Yes,
Maybe we can clarify some of the misconceptions that people have about healing, about coaching, about trauma, and so on.
that's right. I'm very excited too, because it's a subject very close to my heart as well. Because I'm also in the process. Healing is a never-ending process, right, Tessie? There's never an expiration date to it. So uh, um, I felt that it was required, because I went looking out, in India as well, for the right person I could resonate with, and I could trust. to open myself, to open my truth, to reveal my truth out, because these are very sacred spaces, and they're also very vulnerable spaces, correct? To kind of just go out and meet somebody you never have met, and you have no comfort zone, so to say, and completely reveal yourself, and all your dark secrets and the monsters and the dragons, and get them out there and say, this is who we are, you know and help us out, please. So I'm so
Yeah.
happy that I took that journey, and now we are able to kind of also help others in the same journey too. And most important, I'm so happy I met you, because I kind of resonated immediately with where you come from and what you've been doing, Tessie. So can you kind of tell our audiences who are joining us?
The coaching
uh,
relationship is a very unique one. It is built on firstly wanting to work on oneself. It is a solution focused relationship. It is not a relationship where two people feel comfortable with each other and to share one's deepest, darkest secrets. No, that's not quite it, because it's not a friendship. It's a
mm,
relationship where there is a leader who plays the role of a facilitator,
mm,
and that person is going to hold that client accountable to his or her results. So, in that contract, both parties have to understand the dynamics of this relationship really well,
right.
because otherwise it deteriorates. I say deteriorates, but actually it becomes just a chit chat where two people are able to, spill their guts, and they think they feel comfortable with each other to go deep. But really, when it comes to the crunch, the coach needs to hold the client accountable to the outcome,
Yes.
or the goal of the client. And this is
Mm,
where there is a line between coaching and therapy, coaching and counseling, because counseling is where the relationship gets to handle uh, someone's woundedness, someone's trauma, someone's past experience that's not so pleasant, someone's pain.
mm,
A coaching relationship, however, is about taking a healthy human being with everyday needs,
mm,
and driving that person to attain a higher potential. So that requires that client to have some level of ego strength
mm,
in order to say, yes, I am ready, I am able to
correct.
be pushed and nudged towards a higher level, like a stretch goal, for instance. you know
Yes. Yes.
so how elastic that space is depends on how emotionally healthy that
Mm,
individual is. So if that person is wanting to heal from the past,
mm,
then I personally would recommend a counselor or a grief consultant or a therapist.
okay.
uh, if someone who wants to say, I'm going to transition from being a professional to an entrepreneur, a business owner, and I'm
Mm,
going to have to do all of these things differently from what I've been used to, then I
right.
say, okay, are you ready to take on this challenge?
Mm,
Because that's what a coach will do. A coach will push the boundaries so that the person is able to step out of that comfort zone
correct.
and reach a little higher. So that's the first distinction that I would make before I take on a new client, whether they
Mm.
are in the therapy arena or whether they want to be in the expansive arena.
Okay, wow. Okay, that's very interesting, and I like the way you kind of very clearly distinguished it. Awesome. So as a coach, Tessie, you've been in the field for a very long time. What would you say are the three most important life learnings that have personally helped you, and that which you also can use or use to support your clients?
That's interesting. To summarize it, see, I've been coaching now for a little more than 15 years.
Mm.
And to drop it down to three main
Yes.
categories, I'd say what's really important is to know that we want to create a bubble of protection for ourselves. I say this because as you go into the world,
Mm.
as a young adult, as a working professional, as a woman, as a person, you're going to be hit from all sides with the media, with expectations, with culture, tradition, social norms,
Yes.
and you don't know what is good for you, what's not so good for you, what fits
Mm.
your own ambition, your own intentions, and your purpose.
Correct.
So to create this bubble, this, I call it this personal space where you get to really know what's yours, like what's mine and what's not
Mm.
mine. So
Mm.
I'm not going to buy into other people's expectations of me or
Yes.
hand me down beliefs that are obsolete, that my grandmother used to say,
Yes.
do it this way because it's always been done that way.
Mm. Mm.
And if you want to
Yeah.
protect yourself from being hurt or humiliated or insulted or from criticism that actually doesn't belong to you because
Mm.
it's from other people's, baggage, then
Yes.
you want to
Yes.
create this space where nothing that doesn't belong to you doesn't get in.
Yes.
So I
Right.
learned that early on to create that space so that you can just dust off what's not yours, and what's yours you get to choose for yourself. I think that's a huge skill that I train my clients to have.
Hmm. Wow. Anything else beside that? Because I think that is it sounds very, very right. I think it begins with that. Anything else that goes into it besides drawing boundaries? That would be a
Yeah.
boundary setting, right?
So the other thing that's really good to know is that as human beings, we have this amazing brain, this amazing human body,
Hmm.
emotional, mental, physical, etc. It
Yes.
gives us the ability to choose how we want to think, how we want to feel, how we want to speak, and how we want to do things.
Correct.
And again, it comes from uh, taking on your power, not giving it away by following, going with the flow, or listening to, what they call the herd
Yeah.
mentality, or just
Yes.
just taking on what the popular masses do, but
Yes.
actually creating your own thoughts, your own feelings, your own behaviors, and your own words,
Hmm.
so
Hmm.
that it is clearly representative of yourself.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
the thinking
Hmm.
in here is you can choose, and in that choice lies your power. So
Hmm.
whenever I want to check myself, look, am I in my power or not? I
Hmm.
want to
Hmm.
say, whose thoughts are those?
Yes.
Whose
Yes.
feelings are those?
Yeah.
Whose speech is that? So
Yes.
when you have that practiced into your way of being,
Hmm.
then guess what? There isn't much space left for blaming or excuse making,
Correct. Yeah.
right?
Yes.
So you're
Absolutely. Yes.
totally responsible, is the big aha.
Hmm.
Nobody's gonna come and save you.
Right.
Nobody's there to be your punching bag because you did this, you allowed this.
Yeah. You made the
And
choice. You
I'm
made the
talking
choice.
about regular days. I'm not talking about Afghanistan and the rest of it. I'm talking
Sure.
about
Sure.
regular people on regular days. So
Yeah.
the thing is, when you know you can choose how good of a day you're going to have, then automatically you're going to organize your time and what you're going to think about what's going to happen
Correct.
in a way that empowers you, in a way that makes you resourceful, in a way that makes you able to up your performance, rather than say, oh, I couldn't do it because, that happened, and therefore, so a lot of
Yes.
fluff and a lot of that fat is cut away,
Yeah.
and
So
you
so you're
get,
you get to the core of it. Correct.
yeah, you get
So
to
what?
choose
Yeah. I
what
like
kind
that.
of a day that you want. You get to
I
choose
like
what
that.
kind of a life that you want.
I like that. Yes.
It took me a while to learn that, but when it gets in, then you know how powerful we are.
Yes, correct. So the power of choice always rests with you, is what you're saying. It is in no one else's hand. And I think that is the most important life lesson to learn, right, Tessie?
Yeah,
Correct?
I
Right.
think
Which
that
means,
is a huge it's a huge boon for power. If you want to develop
hmm,
any muscle,
hmm,
know that you already have it. Just don't give
yes.
it away.
Yeah, just don't give it away. Correct. So, which brings me, to my next question, which because I'm so, I there's so much of strength in what you have said, and that if each individual can understand that and realize it, their own path and journey springboards from there, right? Because when you take control into your own hands. So, in your opinion, because you're in the profession, what are the core issues most common to be found in your practice with clients?
um I think that most of us are a product of the people around us because we
Hmm.
don't set boundaries.
Yes.
Um, that included would be we tend to blame a lot. We
Yeah. It's
don't take,
always somebody
yeah,
else's fault.
yeah, we don't take ownership and responsibility for ourselves. Again,
Correct.
I'm talking about regular people, not Afghanistan,
Yeah. Yeah. Sure.
and so we tend to like to stick to a story
Hmm.
that keeps us safe and stuck in a way. I don't want to say stuck, but really we want
Yeah.
to keep into a little cycle
Hmm.
that we are used to, that gives us a kind of a benefit from, okay, I don't have to do too much and I'm okay just as I am,
Yeah. Taking
until you're not,
responsibility. Yeah.
until you're
Yeah.
not okay. And then
Hmm.
you know you have to fix something inside of yourself, because look, there's nobody that's going to get to fix you,
Correct.
just you fix yourself.
Yes. So what you're
Yeah.
saying is that there is no way that you can pass the buck on to somebody else. The responsibility is completely and entirely yours.
I mean, think about uh, being a wife. If you
Hmm.
enter a relationship thinking that the man is going to make you a happy person, then forget it.
Yeah.
That's almost a
But
joke.
yeah, yeah, well,
And
Tessie, I must, interject here. This thought, line of thought that somebody else is responsible for our happiness, has also been is also somebody else's speech, which is passed down to us. And
mm,
I've also, heard that, in our own circles as well, family circles as well, that that somebody else, like the husband or the partner, somebody else is responsible for your happiness. So when your happiness, if it doesn't come, God forbid, from that other person, your life is meaningless and it's over. And how do I say it? You, like how you said, you take the responsibility for your own happiness, right?
I'm
In
sure.
that
I'm
way.
sure there are wonderful families out there, and I mean, I have wonderful family myself, who bring me endless joy. I'm not saying that it's not possible. I'm saying, but I've taken responsibility for it.
Hmm.
I'm working on it. I'm
Right.
not just sitting back and saying, you make me happy or else,
Yes.
you should do this, you
Yes.
must do that,
Yes.
because you're my daughter, or you're my, my dad or whatever. I expect, oh my goodness, that expectation is going to be a real mood killer.
Correct. Yes, yeah, correct. So, in your opinion, Tessie, what do you think, what makes a good coach, and how does one navigate and choose from the several out there?
This is a little interesting, isn't it? Because everybody is getting into this arena of self-help.
Mm, correct. Yeah,
So
yeah.
the first distinction I made is really, really important because it builds the right match for the right professional.
Hmm,
Like when I'm training, I'm not coaching.
hmm,
And training is a particular modality that means teaching. And when I'm teaching, I'm not coaching.
right,
When I'm coaching, I'm not counseling,
right.
and it's all different. When
Wow.
I'm chairing a forum, I'm actually chairing a forum.
Hmm,
When
hmm,
I'm interviewing a panelist, a panel,
yes,
I'm the interviewer or the facilitator. It's
correct.
all it's all different modalities. So one has to be really, really careful who they're engaging for what, and
Hmm,
it's always the responsibility on the client what state they are in, what level of emotional ego strength
hmm,
they are in order to select the right professional for them. I'm
hmm,
sure everyone out there, and I'm not trying to, discount anyone. I'm sure everyone has value to offer.
okay,
Even being a friend and being a therapist is different. Being a
right.
friend and being a team member is different. So if we're working in a team at
Hmm,
work and
hmm,
we need to be team members, we are actually bound by a professional, standard.
okay,
But when we
okay,
want to be friends, it's a separate thing. When we go to the water cooler, we can be friends. But when we
right,
come back to the meeting, we become professional team players. It's
correct.
all it's all different levels of contract, you see.
Hmm,
So
hmm,
one has to
hmm,
be really careful what you are engaging. So a
right,
professional like I'm an executive coach,
correct.
which means I work mainly in the business and organizational arena.
Hmm,
And you won't find me advertising because at that level it's referrals. And you
yes,
don't see me posting work because at that level it's all confidential.
sure, yes.
So, I don't talk about my work at all.
Hmm, hmm,
So, on the other hand, maybe a life coach who has a wider audience might
yes.
need to advertise and say, look, I can help you, with your this,
Hmm,
that, the
hmm,
other. But it
yes,
depends. So, I'm not going to discount anyone because everyone in their place has value to offer.
yes,
being a
correct.
friend being a friend has value to offer. I mean, a friend has value. And if you're a befriender on the
Yes,
phone, you have a
yes,
value to offer.
yes,
It is all different facets of the same self-help diamond, you know
correct.
yeah.
Wow, that sounds like a landmine to me.
Yeah, so you have to,
Yes,
like I say, you have to take responsibility and you have to own your particular status, and
yes,
then you go looking from that space. Because you
yes,
can't just say, I'm going to look for a life coach and cast your net out there,
yes,
and chances are you're not going to get the right one. Because
correct.
really,
Exactly.
you should be
Right.
looking at the mirror first
Hmm,
and then making the selection from what you need. And sometimes it's really challenging to find the right fit because it's
yeah.
also like I don't like dealing with my dragons. Do
Hmm,
you? I
hmm,
mean, it's really challenging for me
correct.
to want to tame my dragons
Yes,
with someone who's going to hold my feet to the fire,
Right.
because that's the coach that's going to really help you. That's the coach that's really going to get you over that situation. But you
Correct.
might find someone softer, more pliable, you know, more permissive, and say,
Yes.
"Hey, that's a really good coach," but
Yes.
really, you might not get the results that you want. You know, so it's a toss up, and it's not always the professional's fault. It's that client professional
Fit.
matching,
Yeah,
that
fit. Yeah,
fit
correct.
that both parties have to take responsibility for. So the
Correct.
contract, if you are a person of integrity, you're going to tell the client that, hey, coaching with me, it's gonna be challenging, and you're gonna feel like I'm a real stickler, or
Mm, mm,
I'm gonna
mm.
have to say there are gonna be times when you want to run a mile from me.
Right.
However, this is why that's done.
Wow. I like the fact, I like the words that you've been using, like ego strength, which I
Mm,
think is, which is so important. I think it's also maturity to be able to
yeah,
kind of, the
yeah,
level of maturity that you are in to decide, which fit is going to be your fit, or which fit is going to be
yeah,
person that you will go to, who
yeah,
will make you, who will hold you accountable and
yeah,
responsible to the change that you're trying to,
yeah,
evoke and for yourself, right? Awesome.
yeah.
I really like this. And I
and
really like
some
the
and
fact,
some coaches,
hmm,
like, they're not comfortable dealing with strong emotions.
hmm,
So when somebody breaks down in tears, when somebody has an anger management issue, like rah,
right.
when
Yeah,
somebody flies off the handle,
correct.
and somebody a coach who maybe is not comfortable enough to
Yes.
hold the space, and oh, no, let's not even go there,
Yeah.
because I'm not comfortable dealing with your,
Yes.
you know
Yes. Yes.
so then the client gets shortchanged, I always say.
Hmm.
So that
Hmm.
level of maturity in both parties, not just the client but also the coach, to get the
Correct.
best possible outcome.
So ego strength, maturity, experience also, I think so,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Will play a huge role in that. And which makes it even more important now to get my next guest who will join us for a short time. Because like I said, it is a landmine completely, and everything looks very attractive because everything is very glamorous. Everyone kind of brands themselves in a very glamorous manner, saying, "Oh, I have all the solutions." Which brings me to invite Dr. Hugh. Dr. Hugh Yin Kit is the medical officer of the Mac Clinic, Malaysia's premier and pioneering aesthetic institution. He's a very close, kind of friend of mine too, and a professional who I've seen really dedicated to what he does. Good evening, Dr. Hugh, and welcome to Heart
Good
to
evening.
Heart.
Yeah, good evening, Ethel and Tessie. Hi, hi again.
Hi.
Thanks for having me on the show, Ethel.
Yes, you're most welcome, Dr. Hugh. I think it's a very important topic that we are discussing, which is on, how do you choose, which life coach best suits, like how, like even Tessie mentioned, ego strength and maturity and experience. In your own profession, you've been, in the aesthetic business for almost a good 25 years, and you've seen a lot of trends have come and gone. So we also are wondering, if is life coaching also a lifestyle trend, or is it a sign of the times, given the pandemic and things that way. Why do you think, Dr. Hugh, in your professional capability and experience and counsel, why do you think it is so important to counsel your patients before they opt for a procedure, so that they avoid being victims to quacks and unprofessionals? And I think between you and me and the media universe, we know that's a lot of that happening out there.
Yeah, of course it's important. But first of all, Ethel, I'm not that old. It's only about 20 years in the industry, not 25. Closer to 20,
Okay.
but it's
All right.
okay. Yeah, so yeah, of course. I think I've been watching the show since the beginning, almost the beginning, with
Yes.
Tessie, right? Speaking about all the challenges and choices people have, and of course, it's important to find the right person for right kind of problem that you want solved. So just as what I actually identified a lot with what Tessie said, about, there are people who advertise and they go out and they want to capture a large, sort of mass kind of audience, and they want a lot of people to come and see them. But they may not have the highest level kind of solutions. So I identified a bit because actually from the start, I've seen how people do things differently, and I sort of again identify with Tessie in the sense that I'm looking at a higher level kind of stuff, and we actually started off with doctors not being able to advertise, and we always had to have word of mouth kind of referrals. But the things have changed a lot, right? Internet has come, social media has come about. Doctors have been allowed to advertise maybe for the good last 10 years now. So there are a lot of challenges obviously facing how we are actually capturing the right audience, and of course people have different messages all outside, just probably like what the life coach or the motivational kind of people industry is facing. We are facing that as well. Why is it important? Of course it's important because if you get a wrong kind of match, again, just like what Tessie said, the person may not be able to handle whether they have the right tools or not. In my trade and profession, we have a lot of machines. We are tech dependent. We also have a lot of choices of products we use. So obviously, when people are starting out, let's say in the industry, right, they will actually go for maybe lower, things that they can afford within the premises, within the healthcare facility. But of course, as things go about, you have a higher, you have more sort of premium kind of quality machines and products. So I think it really depends what you want. And I can't fault anything because I think maybe it's to a certain extent the medical industry has opened up where previously it was very closed, and the people can only tell get a referral, or maybe sometimes they get the right answer, sometimes they don't get the right answer from friends, right? Who is a good doctor? Who do I go to? Who do I go to for gastro problems, right, or cardiac problems? And then they get very limited answers. Now it's all out there, but the problem is there's too much noise, right? And there's a lot of dilution of the ideas and credentials that people have. And another thing has crept in because this thing is so out there and out there in the wild. People have taken advantage of it. So there are people who are in certain kind of in the industry, right, or a business for maybe a different kind of purpose. Maybe their aim is to make a lot of money, or they have businessmen investors. Or they are in it, altruistically, more like a doctor principle, or maybe their personality suits, right? They are just more straight, right? And they're just looking at just, dealing with whatever problem that the patient brings forward to them. So I think you have to take all that into account, and it's important because they will determine what kind of result you will eventually get. Very much like what I'm echoing what Tessie said. In the sort of what people can look out for in Malaysia, I mentioned this before in your show before as well, Ethel, that there is already a system in place, sort of, a very rudimentary, very basic system by the Ministry of Health, right? That things you need to check out for to find whether you are going to the right place for medical or aesthetic kind of treatment, which is that to find out whether the premise is sort of registered as a medical private healthcare facility. That's number one. Number two, the doctor has a current, annual practicing certificate, APC. And then in the case of this aesthetic services, we have this thing called the letter of credentialing and privileging to do aesthetics. Not every doctor is, just openly allowed to do that. So that's a kind of a very basic system in place. But after that, really, it's all out there.
Correct.
So what I would say, another thing a little bit of thing to add on is actually you can also go by to sort of see whether you're going to the right person based on track record. And track record, you can actually look around. Sometimes some people, there might be some giveaways in some sort of online blog or a page, right, where you can see people giving testimonials. Sometimes, right? Sometimes, not every time we know that all can be trusted, but sometimes you might see, a completely written one, or maybe again word of mouth from friends. If you see the results, in what they have on the skin, on the face, so that are very good, strong pointers.
Wow. Yeah, that's why I like what Tessie said about, about ego strength and about maturity and experience, right? I think it all counts.
Integrity.
Yes, it all counts.
Absolutely,
that's how
agree with that.
to make right life choices. Okay, thank you, Dr. Yu. That was really good. That was really good because, as I said, your profession is also a landmine. There are landmines everywhere, and you have to keep navigating, through it all to make right decisions. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for
Yeah.
sharing your inputs.
Have a good weekend. Bye bye.
Bye. Bye. Thank you. Good night.
Bye.
Wow. Yeah. So that was very interesting to understand, and that brings us now to another very core guest, who I'm, who it's a pleasure for me to bring her online with us. Michele Sagan has been also a local Malaysian. She is a leadership coach and a psychotherapist who believes true potential is realized through self-awareness and self-discovery. I like this. I like when she says about like how you also mentioned, Tessie, self-awareness and self-discovery to reach your highest potential. She's also the CEO and principal consultant of Optimal Insight and Well Women. Let's get Michele to join us. Michele, good evening.
Good evening.
And
Hello.
and welcome to Heart to
Hello,
Heart.
Michele. Hi.
Hi.
And there's Tessie Lim, who's
Hey,
also an
that's my
executive
office
coach.
you're in.
Absolutely.
Looks like my office.
The backgrounds look similar and stuff. So welcome.
I'm
Welcome.
behind blue. I'm behind the blue screen, Tessie.
Okay.
Welcome. This is so exciting, Michele, and I'm glad that you also resonate with the topic. Because we've been discussing it offline as well, and I think it's so important today. To have professionals like you and Tessie and Dr. Hugh, who was just part of the conversation, to actually kind of get there and help us. Help us, the layman or the laywoman, to navigate the landmine. Of all the life coaches and healers and everybody else who's out there, and to make right choices for ourselves. So yes, so I've been seeing Well Women, that you also kind of mentioned. What is it all about? Would you like to share that with us, Michele?
Yes. Well, as Tessie mentioned earlier as well, right? We have to sort of establish where we are and what we want in terms of the coaching that we're looking for. So if Tessie is, I'm also an executive coach like Tessie, but Well Women is not. It can be considered as executive coaching, but it's mainly for life coaching, right? So it's slightly different. It's a different slant. And what we're trying to do with Well Women is to actually have more conversations with women to empower to really be able to reach their own full potential, right? So rather than coming though from a more corporate side of things, I'm looking at it from personal side of things. So if you're unhappy with where you're at the moment in life, if you're sort of struggling to figure out okay what's next, right? And then particularly these COVID-19 MCO times,
Yes.
we've said just now that we started to question ourselves a lot, right? We've suffering a lot from what we call languishing, right? So
Yes.
in the past, if you were either flourishing, you were doing really well, or you were suffering, you weren't doing at all well. We're now stuck in this sort of middle space, right? Where we're
Correct.
just languishing, which is like almost the scientific term for it in that sense. So when we're
Yes.
languishing, we're not at our best, but neither are we depressed. But we're in this horrible middle section where we've lost our oop sort of for life. We've lost that zest. So to wake up in the morning really excited, really passionate about what we want to do next, it's finding
Yes.
it again, and really. I think also for women in particular, especially when things are changing so much today, with so many women coming to the workforce, right? In Malaysia itself, we make more than 50% of the workforce at the moment.
Yes.
And we have more and more women in high positions, and you see a lot of more women becoming board members, and getting to the C-suite. So also women are trying to find that balance between work and life, right? So as much as my Tessie coaches them to also develop their abilities and strengths in the workplace, it's also finding that balance at home, right? How do you that balance so that when you can still be a mother, for example, or look after your parents, your aging parents, or an ill family member, while at the same time performing well at work, right? And so it's a lot of times when women are the problem with women, or we wouldn't say the problem, the beauty about women, the strength of but okay, which can also be a weakness in a sense, is that we
Yes.
tend to take care of others more than we take care of ourselves a lot of times.
Yes.
So self-care,
Absolutely.
self-care and tends to get sacrificed a lot because we're looking after the children and the spouse and
Mm.
making sure, you know, we still go to work, but everything at home is spick and span, and we sort of take that responsibility onto ourselves.
Yes.
So when that self-care gets sacrificed, then you know you will never get to that point of feeling completely satisfied with the way things are, right? You always feel like, oh, you know, is there more to it, or is this all life is, right? Just this big struggle of going to work, coming home, juggling, to the point where you lose sort of balance. And when you lose that balance, that's when you tend to find that you know, you don't get so excited anymore about things because you drain, you're exhausted, fatigue kicks in. And so what Well Women tries to do as well is help women to find this excitement and this zest for life again, you know, to get rid of a lot of the perceptions, right, that they carried for themselves in the past, and to break through and to come out the other side, you know, much more empowered, much stronger in terms of, I think about it, as you mentioned it as well, finding that purpose, that sense of what you want to do in life, you know, finding that balance as well, finding happiness again. And when we say happiness, we don't mean the elusive emotion. We mean that sense of well-being, right? That overall sense of well-being across our life. As well also as having that healthy mindset and a strong, you know, resilient, tenacious personality that can take you through the most challenging times. So that's basically, you know, what we try to do for women. Yeah.
Wow.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, it's amazing. That's a lot actually. That's a lot of work, Michelle. Congratulations on that.
Thank you.
Congratulations. I also think, and I'm sure Tessie also will agree. I think as women, we tend to abandon ourselves, right? We tend to forget about ourselves in the care and in the love of another, and I'm sure kind of all of us at some point of time have been guilty of that, including myself. And then then you kind of suddenly realize with the coaching that you do, when you can step up and say, "Hey, come on, I need to put myself first out there." And not lose myself, in a relationship or in a family or in nurturing or caring, for others. Yeah. So Michelle, what have been your learnings that, your personal learnings which you integrate into, professional support for your clients?
Yeah, I think one of the reasons why I get up in the morning and my purpose in life, right, is to help women to get to this place, right, where they're happy and they're feel empowered again. And the reason why was I myself had been through a rough time in the past, right? In my 30s, I went through, a lot of questioning. I was a banker before. I was an investment banker for quite a number of years in London, then back in Malaysia. And I realized that finance wasn't for me. And there was this point in my 30s where I said, what do I really want to do, right? And it's a question mark,
Yes.
And so a lot of soul searching, I actually, during that time of soul searching, I actually had a bout of depression as well, where I said, this can't be, right? There has to be more to life than just 9 to 5, going to work, crunching the numbers. And when I found this purpose, what I realized it is helping other women, and men, of course, because I've coached plenty of men as well in that time. But I think the reason why, Optimal Insight is for more to caters to both men and women. So there's two companies that I have, but Well Women is specifically for women, right?
Yes.
So what happened was I found that my passion is helping wake people up, right? Because if they've lived their life a lot of it asleep, then how do you wake them up? How do you help them to have this transformative awakening where they're no longer just living the lives like Tessie said, which I resonated with a lot earlier? How they're just living the lives according to what society wants. How do they break out of that so that they're living real, authentic lives? So learning, which I experienced my own self, was trying to find the authentic Michelle, the real me, the one that's not faking it every day, right? And trying to bring the real me to the table every day, even if it means that I have to be vulnerable to a certain extent, right? And
Yes.
so of course
Yeah.
you do have to have those barriers that bubble, like Tessie says, which I completely agree with. But also, how do you bring the authenticity and that vulnerability in, and not be afraid to allow
Not be
yourself
afraid.
to be
Yes.
real? Yeah.
Yes.
And so I
Yep.
think that learning to be real is so key. And I found that when I was faking it as a banker, doing things that I wasn't passionate about, I didn't
Right.
have a sense of satisfaction in my life, right? So I
Yes.
think
Yes.
that authenticism is really important. And the
Mm.
other thing, I also realized that I learned that I always try and bring to the table when I speak to women, is that sense of being kind to yourself. You know,
Mm.
because I used
Mm.
to be a perfectionist, right? So I was very hard, on paper, I everything looked really good on my resume, on my CV, and
Correct.
for a long time, I because I did so well in school and did well, got a good job in London, and everything on paper looked great. Um, I thought for a long time that things were good until
Mm.
it cracked and broke down and became horrible, right? So what I
Yes.
learned then was that my perfectionist tendencies were not helping me, and that I was not defined by my CV. My
Mm.
life, my worth as a human being was not defined by my resume or by my CV or by my net worth. It was defined by my life worth. And
Yes.
finding that life worth for me was also learning that I can't just be an achiever, right? And it's just
Mm.
all boxes and doing. I really had to be
Mm.
comfortable with me in my own skin, and that's when I learned to be kind to myself. So instead
Yes.
of just being this perfectionist of trying to being great at everything, I said it's okay. Sometimes I'm not good at certain things.
Mm.
I've failures. I failed in so many different parts of my life. But that's the
Yes.
beauty of what makes me human and who I am today.
Yes.
And get women to be able to look at themselves in the mirror and to see
Mm.
and love themselves still, despite
Yes.
all the brokenness.
Yes.
There's a Japanese word, right? It's ikatsu, is it? I can't remember exactly what it is now.
Yeah.
Which means, right, perfect in being perfect in your brokenness, right? So just as
Mm.
much as you're broken,
Oh
it's
yes.
a
Yeah.
perfection.
Yes. That
Yeah.
that is the Japanese technique of mending broken pottery and all
All
that.
right. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
right. So
Correct.
yeah, so I think I bring those are the ones I think I really want to bring to the table when I have conversations.
Wow, this is fantastic. I think between the three of us, if I may say so, we've had an overachiever syndrome. Because I mean, it resonates with me too. Perfection, and then you crash and burn,
Yeah.
correct? Yeah, and I think a lot of that crash and burn, Michelle and Tessie also, will agree. We've seen it in particular in these times now, in the pandemic times, because suddenly everybody was cooped up at home. You had to look. You were forced to look at the mirror. There was no other. There was no running away, right? And I think that brought in a lot of, so the landmines were suddenly very real and right in front of you, and you're going to step on it at one day or the other. So I look at it as as a second pandemic, so to say, that kind of led to and has now opened up this entire Pandora's box of depression and mental health issues, right? Did you see this coming as a coach? Did you see this coming? The second pandemic of depression and mental health?
I think
Well,
it's not a second pandemic. I think they run concurrently. Because if you are cooped up, yeah, Michelle, if you're cooped up and you
Yes.
cannot express yourself and you're financially restricted, not just
Hmm.
physically restricted, you're financially restricted and you're forced to think outside
Yes.
of the box, and you're
Yes.
forced to, open channels where you've never gone before,
Hmm.
to because your survival depends on it, or there's no normal anymore.
Right.
Then you have to look really hard at where you are right now. And for women especially, since Michelle is dealing with a lot of women, I've come across case upon case of women not having the permission to be vulnerable, to be authentic, to be themselves. They just don't have permission. And I say, you can. What you mean? I can?
Yes.
Whose choice is
Wow.
it? Do you know it's your choice?
Yes.
What you mean? It's my choice? So, you know, the hand-me-downs of beliefs and judgments and prejudices that go
Mm,
from generation to generation that we're all
mm,
carrying on our backs, you know,
exactly.
can be tossed aside the minute we choose to think like that.
Yeah, yeah.
But not many women think they have the freedom to do that even.
Correct. Yeah, it's like
So
throwing a flip, no? Just a
it's
flip.
you know, it's like how does that resonate with how when you realize you have permission over your own choices, how does that make you feel? Oh, no, I don't think I'm comfortable with that at all.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's the
What do you
reaction.
think? Yeah. What do you think, Michelle? Did you see this coming? Did you see this entire,
So,
you
yeah,
know?
so I I've seen a lot of women and men who I've been coaching a lot of men too over this last since the pandemic started, and you see a lot of them start to question life a lot, and they also get into a space in a headspace which is not
Mm,
healthy and positive anymore. And you know
mm,
what is basically is happening is we're suffering from what we call anticipatory grief, right? So we
okay.
grieve all the
Okay.
things
Yeah.
we potentially not going to have. So the weddings we were going to have, they're not happening.
Yes.
The
Yes.
holidays, you know, the jobs, the promotions that we thought we were going to get, we didn't happen. You know, we
Mm,
expected our children to grow up in a world that's safe, that doesn't require, so all these things we're grieving it.
yes.
Consolidated, the whole world is grieving it in the same way, but
Correct.
it's anticipatory, right? Because
Mm,
we don't know when it's going to end. There's no end date
yes.
to this
Yes.
pandemic. So this anticipatory grief that we carry around with us is like a weight on our shoulder. So of
Mm,
course you go into this negative headspace and this mental space and all. And what I always tell my clients is, if you go back to the time of the cavemen, right?
yes.
What happens is when you see a tiger, what do you do? So
Mm,
you
mm,
either fight or flight, right? You hit it on the head
yes.
or you run
Yes.
away. So
Yes.
if you think about it, right? So that, and because your amygdala is stimulated, so the
Yeah.
first reaction you have is fight, flight, or freeze, right? Like the deer in the
Mm,
headlights. So
mm,
the
mm,
thing with us now is that we're living in a world where we're constantly looking at the tiger in the face every moment. We open WhatsApp, there's COVID. We turn on
mm,
the news, there's COVID. We look
mm,
everywhere, there's vaccination, COVID. So we're constantly bombarded. So what do? We either fighting, so we're
yes.
fighting here, we're constantly stimulated to fight. So in the sense that we're angry, right? We're angry with the
Mm,
universe, the future, fate, the world, each other,
yeah.
spouses, everything triggers us. Or we're disengaging, we're getting
Correct.
depressed, we get anxious. So if
Correct.
you live fight and flight constantly throughout this pandemic, then you're not going
Mm,
you're obviously not going to come to a good place. So I think one of the key things, when we're trying to help people to get through this, is to help them to reframe it, to understand that
mm,
it doesn't just have to be that way. I know it's horrible, it's bad, but there's also
mm.
other. So one thing one of my favorite sayings is, when the roof of my barn burns down, I can now see the moon.
Yeah. Oh my God.
Right? I mean, if we keep looking, if the world had remained exactly the same and there had not
Same.
been any pandemic, then
Yes.
we won't have so much humanistic leadership come back into the office.
I
People would still be
completely
cogs in
agree.
the wheel,
Yes.
and staff
Yes.
would still be micromanaged. But now with work from home, when
Mm,
the most important commodity now is trust, right? The
mm,
relationship builds. There's a lot more conversations around how do we create well-being for our people. How do we
yes.
support them, and this wouldn't have happened if and the world would continue being driven by profit, being driven
Mm,
by shareholder value, right?
right.
But now organizations are saying, what else can we do? What other CSR? They're thinking out of the box and moving
Yes.
towards real human place, because they realize we're in this together.
Yes.
So there is
Absolutely.
mood.
Yes. I love the barn burns down the roof and you see the moon. This is exactly what I told my mom today on my long call with her, because to kind of tell her that, it's okay. It's completely fine, right? We're alive, we're
Yeah.
healthy and stuff like that. Yeah. Awesome. This is very good, Michelle. So I was asking Tessie, earlier in the hour too, what makes a great coach, and what do you think this entire phenomena, of life coaching is just a trend, like every trend that runs its cycle and then dies down, or is this the real deal?
Well, I think there's just different names for it and different terms, and because of the way it's now being structured or legalized, or so there's always been life coaching or coaching in general for the longest time, right? Either you call it psychiatry, psychology, counseling,
Mm.
therapy,
Yes.
coach, life coaching, executive coaching. There's always been some form
The
of
shrink. The
yes,
shrink.
it's always been right. So in the time of Freud, right
Yeah.
until now. So the
Yes.
question is, the more it's being regulated, then then you have psychiatry, which falls under the medical. Then you have psychology, which they can't dispense medication per se, but they dispense, they do a lot of other things, testing and all. Then you have the psychotherapy, which is the talk therapy. Then you have the coaches, right? So it depends where you go and what you need. And I think, like Tessie says, you have to understand first what exactly what kind of support you really need. So you can't go
Yes.
to a coach if you have depression. I mean, you can go to a coach if you have depression, but they might
Correct.
not be the most, because they might not be able to diagnose you as accurately as a psychiatrist, for example. But they
True.
would be able to do talk therapy if you, but they
True.
cannot give you medication, right? So you need to
Correct.
say, so if you're, so for example, trying to get off addiction, so say you're to drugs or gambling or whatever it is, you need to go
Alcohol.
to maybe an addiction, alcohol. You go to an addiction therapist, right? So it would be maybe another therapist, like a life coach, could help you,
Yes.
because they, it spans a lot of things. But then maybe you need one who's more specialized specifically to that, right? It could be, right? But it's also flexible. It's still fluid, So I think
Correct.
the important thing as well is to just have this connection, to also because as specialized or as certified as they are, if there's no connection, then it's not going to work. So you need that
Yes.
chemistry as well to be there. Like you found chemistry with your life coach, right? You
Yes.
resonate with what he said. So in the
Yes.
same way, that chemistry needs to be there. The clarity, first of all, what do you need, and then that chemistry, of course, and if you can get references, referrals, and all that to authenticate your what you need, then that's even better. So I
Correct.
think those are key. Yeah.
Wow, that is so interesting. I think Tessie has a perspective. You have a perspective. From what I deduce is that what will actually really matter is integrity, deep integrity and authenticity, to kind of to figure out who do I approach for help and support, and what kind of help and
It's
support
really not
I need.
easy being a coach, Ethel. It's
Yes.
really not easy because if you really hold yourself to a high standard, you
Hmm.
know that you have got an outcome to drive towards. You know
Yes.
that you have to be solution focused. You know you have to track and measure and be responsible to the client for
Yes.
their own results. If you are less than someone with integrity, there are so many things you can do to be popular but not drive results.
Yes.
You
I
know,
agree. I agree.
you know
I
what I
completely
mean? You
agree.
can lead with your questions. You can plant ideas. You can, drag your sessions. Is a huge number of plans,
Yes.
tricks out of your
Yeah.
Correct.
market bag. You can pull out, of
Yeah. Yeah.
to make it good for yourself. But if you're
Yes.
really an integrous coach, then you
Hmm.
will have your client's best interest at heart all the time. So it's
Correct.
Yeah.
not. I would say it's not easy, and I've only met a handful who fall into this category.
Correct. So my question to both of you is, who coaches the coach?
If
Correct?
you're really into coaching, you will have a coach because everyone has blind spots.
Yes.
So
Yes.
Yeah.
Because
I have a coach, and I have several, in fact, for different things.
mm-hmm.
So I use them when I need, as and when I need. But as I said, if you are serious about your profession, you should believe in it enough to get support for yourself.
Yes, correct. Because I'm sure Michelle also agrees with that.
Yes,
Because yeah,
maybe,
because yeah,
yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I think just to validate what Tessie said as well, right? That integrity is so key. That you bring to the table with in each conversation that you have, right? Making
hmm,
sure it's customer focused, etc.
yeah,
And not just um, uh, making sure it's really customized to support the needs of your client, right? And also I think the other side of it is that I just wanted to mention is that if we're talking about integrity on the side of the coach, integrity on
hmm,
the side of the client matters too, right? So
yes,
what I mean by that is that I've had
that's a
clients
good
come
one.
who, and I always tell them, it's really key you are open, honest, vulnerable, and kind to yourself, because
Hmm,
if open with me, honest to tell me the truth, allow
hmm,
yourself to be vulnerable, because in that safe space, right? Like which that he talks about, that nice safe space that we provide for them, because it's difficult, right, to share a lot of
yes,
things. And
yes,
kind to yourself in the progress, because you might not get the results you want immediately, but
yes,
you need to work over the challenges and really get to the other side. So don't beat yourself up. But the thing is, integrity from the side of the client, I mean, in the sense, particularly being honest,
hmm,
because
hmm,
sometimes you lie to yourself. So when you
correct.
lie to yourself, you lie to your coach, right? So you're
Yes.
not
Yes,
being that honesty when you don't bring it to the table, right, Tessie? I'm sure you get what I mean. You can't change. You can't help them to get the result if in the
hmm,
first place they don't want to admit or want to see it, and
yes,
they're not honest with themselves in the beginning either.
So let me just pull this apart for Ethel and our audience. So coaching happens in a gap. The gap is where you are now and where you want to be
hmm,
eventually when you
hmm,
receive your results.
right,
So if the client wants to pull wool over your eyes or try to make it
yeah,
a maze or a fuzzy wuzzy or a feel
hmm,
good, or just to put something on the table to talk because okay, that's coaching out of the way, especially
yes,
if someone else is paying for it, right?
Yeah,
right,
So it's lacking integrity because that's not real,
hmm,
Ethel.
yes,
So when we get into the coaching conversation, then as experienced as Michelle and I are, of course we will see that that's
hmm,
not the real deal.
right,
yeah,
And then it's for us to
absolutely.
get deeper and deeper and then decide like this client isn't really being honest with me, doesn't really want a result, they just want to
Hmm,
pass the time away. And
correct.
then
absolutely.
I would say to the bosses, this is not a coachable fit.
Yes.
Yeah,
Okay. Wow. So which means that there is definitely a relationship between the coach and the coached, obviously, right? To make
yeah,
it successful and to have outcomes, being driven out of it. Yeah.
yeah.
Wow.
I think
Wow.
Tessie brought up a really good point, in the sense that just as much as the coachee selects us, we also select our coachee, who we want to
Yes.
coach, right? And if they're
Yes.
really not coachable, then
Yes.
it's impossible for us to do our job, and to
Mm,
support and help them. And in that
mm,
sense, if we bring the integrity to the table, we have to turn it down, right?
right.
Because
Right.
its relationship is not going to work, and it's will be a waste of time on both sides, and
Yes.
also potential waste of money. So that I think we have to admit it up front as well. I mean, of course, if we'll try our best, but when we
Mm,
understand that this is what's happening, then it's no point to continue if there's not
continue.
integrity on both sides. Yeah, that correct.
Fantastic.
Yeah,
Fantastic. Wow. This is so many eye openers today. So wow, we are kind of also kind of running with time as well. What advice and solutions, and I would want this from Tessie and from you too, Michelle. What advice and solutions do you recommend or suggest towards mental health management? I think that's a big, huge elephant, which is right there in front of everyone's face, right? I would like Tessie to go first. What advice and solutions would you recommend towards mental health management?
Well, this sits in a context, of course, because I wouldn't know how to
Hmm.
answer it otherwise.
Hmm.
So I
Context?
would say let's make the context this COVID situation, this lockdown situation, okay?
Correct.
So when we feel powerless, when we feel our freedom curbed, restricted in so many ways, our expressions, our finances, our movements, etc., etc. Reframe is brilliant. Yeah, it's. I want to bring back the truism that we make meaning over what's happening to us on the outside in here.
Yes.
So like Stephen Covey says, everything happens twice. First time in here and then out there. So the meanings we give to whatever happens would set the pace for whatever we see happening to us outside, right?
Yes.
So a good meaning is we've done it before. We've overcome the Y2K. We've overcome the internet revolution, the Airbnb and the all that internet kind of businesses. So this pandemic will just have to make us revise and renew, just like we've done before. So the meaning that I choose to make of it is, if we've done it once before, we can do it again.
Correct.
If we stay together, since this COVID has leveled the playing field, we will be able to overcome. So that's the positive meaning that I choose to make so that I can operate in this world.
Yes. Correct.
So like Michele says, be a positive connector, have a positive headspace, and this energy, let it be contagious so that it gets everyone together.
Yeah. So what you're saying is adapt, adjust, and thrive.
I'm saying because we create the meanings we live. So the quality of our lives is the quality of the meanings that we make.
Of our thoughts. Yes. Okay. Correct. Yeah. Michele, what would you suggest?
Well, because Tessie is my soul sister, I'm going to. She's my soul sister, right? I resonate.
We even have same office backgrounds.
Absolutely. I should put my hand up so we can, high five behind. So because she's my soul sister, I'm gonna add to what she said. Beautiful. It's the meaning. I just want to add a little thing to that, because what meaning you give is so important, right? What you think in your head. I'm just going to reframe it a little bit differently in terms of what stories you tell yourself, right? Which I'm sure Tessie knows. So what meaning you give is the story you're telling yourself in your head, right? In the sense also that, so I look at my life, and when I look at my life and it's all up and down, right? I don't look at the downs. I can tell myself the story is, this down is a big failure in my life where, I felt, I failed and this, or I could say I'm the hero in my own story. Everybody has an origin story, right? And I need to give meaning to it, right? So Spider-Man got bitten by a spider. Batman's parents got killed, right? That's why he became Batman. So my failure becomes my origin story, right? So the meaning that I give to my failure is that it created a space for me to understand who I was and what I need to become, right? So that meaning allows me to create that story in my head. So what story am I telling myself every day, right? Is it the story of I'm powerless, like Tessie said, or I'm miserable, I can't, I can't get through this, we're all gonna be sick, or we're gonna tell ourselves a different story? Are we gonna create different meanings in our minds, about what's happening? Which is all about framing your thoughts, right? And you can tell yourself something like, like Tessie said, we've been through this before, we'll get out of it stronger. And in the meantime, while we're going through this journey, let's do a little bit of soul searching. Let's do a bit of asking ourselves, what can we do to become better people, so that at the end of the day, we come out of it, we come out of it stronger and better than who we were when we entered it, right? So
much
what's
more
your
evolved.
journey? Yeah, what's going to be your journey throughout this time, that these challenging times? And when you hear about all the people who went through the Second World War and they came out so much more resilient, and that's the story that they tell. They are heroes, right?
Yes,
so if
yes.
we can be heroes, we can be heroes, right? And build that resilience
So
along the way.
basically what we're saying is start rewriting our own scripts.
Yes.
Right? Yeah, start rewriting our own script. And we have some comments also as we wind up. I think there are some of our audiences have stayed on to listen to everything. So JD Rock is saying, watching, I'm very informative. Thank you, JD Rock, for being part of the entire conversation. And I appreciate it greatly that that you make the time, you invest the time to want to kind of get to know what is happening, get to meet two different people and audiences. I will be sharing the entire video widely across Facebook and my YouTube, so that it reaches out to more people, more audiences across. If you somehow didn't manage to make the time today to watch it. So Winnie Jolly says Winnie is watching. Thank you, Winnie, for joining and for investing your time with us. Tessie and Michele, this has been such a pleasure to have both of you here on Heart to Heart today, to be able to share such nuggets of wisdom, your own experiences of being very strong, authentic life coaches yourself, for helping so many people out there in the line of your work, and to kind of make, I'm sure, stronger individuals, empowered individuals, and to kind of continue to be so passionate about what you do. So thank you so much, Tessie, and thank you so much, Michele,
Thank you.
for investing your time. Yeah, and I'm going to watch this on replay myself, because I think there's so much here for me also, kind of as a journalist, and also as a woman who is a seeker, to be wanting to make myself better every single day, constantly, by learning and enriching my life. And there are people out there also who you support, and sometimes we don't know, who can be empowered by what you do and what you say. So thank you. Really, thank you, Michele, and thank you, Tessie. Some great words shared today. Yeah. So let's look out for those landmines at all time in our lives. Have a great evening. Have a great week ahead. And more power, girls, more power, ladies, to both of you, to what you do. May your lives be blessed. Thank you
Thank you so much. Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Good night. Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye-bye.
Thanks.
To everyone who stayed back and who watched the session, I'm so empowered myself to kind of, to have this ladies professionals, share so much with us. I will be sharing the video widely across, Facebook and all my handles. So look out for it. Share it among your friends as well. So we never know who could be helped and supported, with the kind of wisdom that is being shared today. Thank you, each one of you, for coming on every Sunday to support the work that happens with Heart to Heart, with your fantastic, feedback that I have offline, online, and to give me so much of love to together. Heart to Heart is meant to kind of to empower each one of us with having healthier, more happier, positive lives. So thank you for the faith, thank you for the love. Have a great night, have a great week ahead, and be strong. We will get through this. Good night.